Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Carlisle United, the team that's on the ball. Carlisle United, the team for one and all. You're looking good, and we're with you all the way. You'll hear us singing every time you play.
King of Kenles and Neil with a pass so true. To Boulder, Stone and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run, the old 1-2, and a shot and a goal.
Hello everyone and welcome to what I think is, for the first time in a while, a special episode of the Brunton Bugle. Yes, we are back, and this is one we've been trailing for a little bit. We finally got around to recording it last week, and it's taken a little while to get edited and put out. There's a few little gremlins in the system, but here it is. This is the interview that Dan and I had with Tom 2 and Alice Piatak, who are, of course, two of our new owners. Very exciting. I can't say thank you enough to Tom 2 for agreeing to do this with us, and it was a pleasant surprise that Alice turned up as well. We thought we were just getting Tom 2, so we got two for the price of one. It was fantastic, and me and Dan got a chance to sit with them for about an hour, and we chatted over a video call, and it was fantastic. We really got to go a little bit in depth into some of the things behind what happened with the takeover of the club and what's coming up, and all the plans they have, and just how excited they are to be involved in the club. And look, you can judge for yourselves, listen to it, but I really felt the enthusiasm from just talking to the two of them, and that's only, it's only 1/3 of the family as well, so that makes it even more fantastic. So I don't want to ramble on too much here. You guys just want to hear them talk, so here you are. This is the chat that Dan and I had with Tom 2 and Alice Piatak last week. Right, so here we are with this special interview episode of the Brunton Bugle, and we've got two very special people with us today, Tom 2 and Alice here. Two of our new owners, I should say there. How are you both doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's stressful at the beginning of the year any year, but it's been extremely exciting, just everything going on in Carlisle and then having to come back to Jacksonville and work a little bit, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, doing really well. Doing well. Glad, as she said, been busy, but it's been good to be busy. So,
yeah. Well, I'm sure all Carlisle fans will wish you guys a very happy New Year. How are you both coping after what's been, let's say, a whirlwind few months for the family generally?
Yeah, no, it's been good. The family's taken to it well. We're getting the travel aspect down and getting to understand everything that comes along with Carlisle and the city. So, we're really starting to understand it and coping well. We need a little couple results on the field, but hopefully those come in time, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's definitely been an adjustment, but it's been really interesting and fun to learn a new aspect of a sport that I really didn't pay attention to beforehand. And so over this last 9 months, I feel like I've really dived into knowing everything about football. And that's really fun for me because I'm very sports oriented in general. So I love that aspect of it, and just being able to go see everything in all the different stadiums and see how different teams play has been really fun and exciting.
Well, that brings me nicely to the next question then. So let's talk a bit about your backgrounds and particularly your sporting interests growing up. Obviously, you mentioned there, Alice, that you're quite new to football, as I'm sure all listeners are glad you call it rather than soccer. But yeah, in terms of both of your sporting backgrounds, what they're like, because I know, Tom, that you've played a bit of, let's call it soccer for the sake of this question, when you were in college as well, didn't you? So what's your backgrounds on that?
So I actually played soccer growing up. So it was very popular in my hometown. I did it from when I was probably 6 to 14. I didn't do it in high school. But then I went into swimming. So I actually did soccer and swimming at the same time, but I was a varsity swimmer in high school. So that's kind of my background. I haven't really played any recreational sports since then. So.
Yeah, and she's from an island, so swimming's a good sport to know down there in Key West. Yeah. But for myself, I'd say I'd pretty much play any sport. Growing up, cricket was one I didn't play. But other than that, American football, soccer, swimming, tennis, track and field. I just kind of like to compete. I would say that's definitely something that was ingrained in me early is just having that drive to compete and do your best on the field or in whatever aspect. So I love all sports. I will say soccer, or as we're saying in this conversation, was my main sport. I dual rostered in fall and spring, played winter and summer for my school. Dual rostering, playing once for a club, and then I just played with my local neighborhood team basically my entire life because I didn't want to leave them. Had great friends on that team, but did need to play club ball as well. So that it was definitely my primary sport. But I mean, all throughout high school, I was a 2 to 3 sport athlete every year, and it's more just I enjoy team sports more than individual sports, and having a group come together and putting in the work to win is just it's something I enjoy, and there's no better feeling than going out there and getting a win on the field.
We all know from the chat or the presentation you guys gave to the meeting with CUOSC members that you've been looking at a club where you've been looking at sports ownership for about a decade or so, at least potentially up to a decade. When did it really ramp up, though? Did something like the Welcome to Wrexham documentary, that kind of thing, did that sort of pique a little bit more interest and think, right, we really need to do something with this, or is it something that's sort of just been bubbling over for quite a while?
A little of both. I would say it's something. I mean, I can go back easily a decade and pull up third division Argentinian football teams that every young man probably to some extent thought, hey, this is the dream. This is the goal. So in terms of how long it's been in the thought process, it has been a long, long time. I'll say about 2.5 years ago, Tom came to me and just said, hey, is this something we could do? Knowing the current status of the business and our family's abilities, and the fact that we now have 3, fully grown, capable couples that can travel around and we're out of college and things of that nature.
More settled down.
Yeah, more settled down. Is this something we could do? So that kind of really, I would say, accelerated the process. Went more from me just having a dream and something that everyone was interested in to something we actually really looked into from a business case perspective versus just a fan perspective.
I also think it had to do with being approached for local opportunities to partner up with teams that were coming available in Jacksonville and how much they were wanting for an investment and what kind of piece that is. And then you shopping it out and saying like, okay, well, for this amount of money, we can partner with this team, or for this amount of money, we can have our own club and make a difference in the community by ourselves. So I think that kind of also escalated the situation of this is something we're really passionate about. This is something we really want to do, but where's the best bang for our buck if we are going to be spending the money to do this? So I think that made a really big difference too, just like the opportunities that were presenting themselves over back in the States.
So if we go back to, what was it, about February last year, and Dan, who was obviously joining us for this interview, he was a bit involved with CUOSC, and you guys got in contact with CUOSC and the club. What was your first initial impressions of speaking to the club and CUOSC when you were pushing for the takeover?
It was really positive. To Dan and Matt and the rest of CUOSC, I want to say thank you for responding to my email. And not just thinking it was a random spam email or something along those lines.
Yeah, it did actually land in the junk folder originally.
Yeah, and there were a few times where emails coming back, they were getting flagged and held up, especially with the company email, as that it flags things from overseas a little bit more. Yeah. So we had a few technical glitches getting that through, but do want to say massive thank you for you guys responding to that and believing that it was a real email there. But it was really positive conversation. We did speak with CUOSC first, and kind of presented, hey, this is our family, this is our goals, and here's kind of how we see things playing out. And luckily, and as we have mentioned, Carlisle was the top of our list. There were 4 or 5 clubs that we had reached out to and spoken to, but Carlisle was number 1. And from that point on, I think we kind of had an idea that if things can continue to progress the way that call went, this seems like the best opportunity. I think me and Tom both agreed on that early on. And then luckily CUOSC got us in contact with the right people at the club, and things just kind of snowballed from there to get us to today, which has been a heck of a ride.
Yeah. I was going to say, just obviously for those listening, we're doing this as a video call. Obviously, we only put the audio out, but this is very reminiscent of the first Zoom about 10 months ago when yourself and your dad were there. And I think there was 5 of us on it, and when we came off it, we all sort of went, "Wow, this is actually serious." We're like, "Wow, this is serious." We're like, "Whoa!" We all sort of just froze for a few seconds and went, "Right, what do we do next?"
It's quite incredible to think, isn't it, when you go back to that? I mean, it's a fair point Dan makes there in terms of realizing it was something serious, because Dan will tell you that we've had so many false dawns over the last 15 years in terms of potential takeover interest. And, you know, we've had was it a Iraqi billionaire? I can't remember who it was.
Syrian.
Dan, was it a Syrian billionaire?
Syrian he was,
Syrian
yeah.
billionaire at one point who turned out not to be a Syrian billionaire.
He owned a
and
pizza
things
shop
like
in Canada, apparently.
that was it, apparently, literally.
A few of them.
But so those false dawns, and obviously as a result, there was a quite a strong vetting process, wasn't there, in terms of making sure you guys are right. But you guys seem, in a sense, quite happy with that, because it shows that chance for you to show how deadly serious you were.
Yeah, very much so. You know, the club definitely, probably due to some of those instances in the past, which we have heard about, they did put us through a pretty stringent process of just, you know, finding out about our family, about our businesses, about our interest in the sport, and really putting us through the ringer in some extents. But, you know, that's kind of what you want when you're looking to take over, you know, a club that you want to know that it's been cared for, and that the people there that are leaving it are wanting someone that's the right fit to come in. And it's quite interesting, you know, nobody really listens to you until they hear that one club's kind of approved you. Then all of a sudden, a bunch of clubs start reaching out and saying, "Hey, heard you guys are qualified, and you know, would you be in?" And it's, no, we're with Carlisle. But it was definitely a process. It took longer than we expected, but we got to the end result that I think we were all hoping for. So we're happy we finally made it.
I was going to say, I think your initial email was late February last year, and obviously you came over in May. The playoffs stopped on for Wembley. We had meetings with you, you know, etc. I was genuinely amazed that nobody got whiff of it until I think it was late August, wasn't it? When
August, yeah.
John Coleman sort of put 2 and 2 together, and you know, 6 months of it was the hardest 6 months I've ever had following Carlisle, because one, keeping it quiet, and then two, when the initial sort of story was run by the News and Star, people are saying to me, "Oh, you'll know," and I'm like, "Don't know anything," you know. Basically lying to people I've known for years just to keep it, you know, not derail anything. But did you find it kind of a little bit of a relief when it became public knowledge?
I would say, yeah, the whole family did. I think I remember when it first broke, you even had to recuse yourself from the Bugle here, because you weren't allowed to say anything. I think I remember listening to that episode, but it was definitely a shocker. I don't remember who sent it to us, but someone just flipped us the News and Star you know, picture, and they sent it, you know, in the morning over UK time. So we all woke up and saw, you know, first thing on our phones, headline, American businessman interested, and the picture at Wembley, and we went, "Oh, yeah, they got us." And then I think they might have had one at the home playoff leg, and we were like, "Yep, they got it." But at this point, we didn't have to be quiet about it, so we were honestly very relieved that it had been leaked or put out there by John Coleman, who I think, just put 2 and 2 together. And a few people caught the American accents when we were at the games, and like, American Carlisle fans, I don't see too many of those, but it was a playoff. So, you know, if we were going to make a trip, it might make sense. But we were definitely relieved that it came out, and we could finally, you know, speak about things, not in depth, but say, "Hey, yes, this is us. Yes, we are real. Yes, we are interested in Carlisle United."
Obviously, that coming out was probably the accelerant towards getting the deal done for me, because obviously once it becomes public knowledge, there's then a sense of, from both sides, you know, obviously yourselves as a family wanting to get the deal done, and also we, speaking as a CUOSC person here, and also the club wanting to get it done, because as you say, other clubs do sort of perk up. "Oh, you're looking to buy a club. Hello, how are you?" You know, so I would say getting released was, it got there 3 months later, and yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It definitely was, and you know, on our side, we never had any, you know, plans to hold anything back. We were just doing, you know, what the club needed us to do. But when, you know, you guys know how football fans are, when something like that gets leaked, it can blow up, and it can really, be all over the place, and everybody, might be talking about it. So we definitely think it did help the process move along on that side, just because once that outside pressure was added, it just all, becomes a pressure cooker, and things needed to get done in a timely manner because there were more eyes on it. And that's not something we were upset about, to be honest with you.
It's funny there you say about can't be many Carlisle American fans, but actually I've just had a look. I can look at all our analytics for the pod, and the second highest country in the world for listening to us is the USA. There's quite a few listeners. New York, Indianapolis, Jacksonville Beach is listed there. So we have got a few around the world. Let's go back to those playoff games then. I think you sort of touched on this before, but that seemed to be the point where, for you and your dad especially, you thought, yes, this is the club we want to take over. It must have been quite special to be involved in those games.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic week. I mean, you could not have picked a better 2 weeks. We weren't even supposed to stay through Wembley, but I mean, how could you leave? But it was definitely a moment. I would say when we were at Bradford and they kind of tempered us with, Carlisle's not quite Bradford. And then we got up to Carlisle and went, we kind of like this more personally, and that was just from a personal feel. And that's regarding the stadium and the infrastructure and everything along those lines. Before we even, got to experience, Brunton Park packed to the gills, just absolutely, rocking on game day there. I would say, yeah, we knew going into it, we were pretty sure that Carlisle was the one. But once we got up to the city and really both the football side and walking around, exploring the city, talking to people that, had no idea who we were, and kind of really just kind of immersing ourselves, definitely fell in love with the area, and what a great reception we've had ever since.
You mentioned previously about you had a short list of clubs and you set out some criteria as to what you were looking for from the clubs. Can you remember what some of those criteria were and what Carlisle particularly excelled in?
Yeah, probably not all of them right off the top of my head, but
a major one was just like radius of other clubs around the club. And I mean, it's already such a saturated market in the fact that if you are in a bigger city, you have to compete with clubs that are 12 times the size of your club. And I mean, that it's still taking the same amount of money and dedication. So why not be a smaller fish, but in a larger area where nobody's competing against you? So I think that was one of the ones that was your biggest.
Geographic location was huge for us. Just a kind of a family friend we had spoken to. I can't say too much, but their National League team in London area. And he said his biggest issue is nobody wants to come to their games on a Saturday because they're going 10 miles down the road to somebody else. So geographic location was a big one. Current infrastructure, Brunton Park, we knew it needed some love. We know, how long the stadium's been standing there. But it's a club-owned asset, which was huge versus some teams that don't own their own stadiums, and the capacity size of it. And once we saw the infrastructure that hadn't been completed on the East End or now the Andrew Jenkins Stand, we saw a lot of potential there as well. So those were two big ones. Having a loyal fan base, I won't lie, it was as simple as going to attendance figures from every league and looking at them and saying, okay, Carlisle pulls fans even when, things aren't at their peak. It's not going to be, you're not looking for 30,000 or 20,000 every week. But you're just looking for, historically, do they have organic fans that really truly care about the brand? And we thought Carlisle was certainly one of the highest in that regard. And I would say one of the last ones was just the ability to win. I go through so many of these clubs, and some of them, they've existed, 100 years, and they might not have a trophy to their name. And, they may have gone up or down a few times, but they've never really gone all the way. And you look at Carlisle and you see division champions, you see trophy football league trophy champions, trips to Wembley throughout their history, or Cardiff City when that was there. That aspect of some teams just don't have the ability to finish. We're Jacksonville Jaguars fans. We've never been to this. I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. We've never even been to the Super Bowl. So, we're one of
I wasn't going to mention the weekend because it was a sore one at the weekend.
It is a sore one, especially after getting knocked out of the playoffs this weekend. That was tough. But we're a team that people kind of associate with just not being able to get to the finish line because we're one of four franchises that have never even been to the Super Bowl. We are a younger franchise, but still, you want to be able to get there. We've been one game short 3 times in the semifinals. So when we looked at Carlisle, we said, this is a team that, they have that innate ability. It's not a specific player and it's not a specific time period, but they've shown the ability to win as a club, and to see those fans at Wembley. I mean, I would say I think the home Bradford leg might have been my favorite, but that was an amazing experience and showed what the club on a banner day.
Yeah, it's one of the things I remember when we had that first meeting face to face in over at Upperby School. One of the major things we sort of touched on was some people call it isolation, where others see it as an opportunity. And I think the only other team I can think of that's similar is probably Norwich, in terms of one city team with where people come in. I mean, you look at Carlisle. I know people who come to watch Carlisle from Workington, Whitehaven, Penrith, Kendal, Keswick, Cockermouth, Appleby, Holtwhistle, Dumfries. There's the catchment area is so big, and a successful Carlisle, does draw people in from these places.
Yeah, I mean, we meet them every week when we're out there in the fan zone. Guys are telling me they've flown in or they've come down from up in Scotland or from down south, and we absolutely love that. And we know the travel is not always the easiest from Carlisle. Those away days can be grueling, I imagine. But the fan base is fiercely loyal and just fantastic group that have been sticking with the club through thick and thin. So hopefully we can provide some good times with that.
I think there's a couple of guys who travel from Glasgow to every home and away game, which is just mad when you think about it for the distance you've got to travel. I mean, I come up from Liverpool for every home game, but to go Glasgow to every single game is just mad, isn't it, really, when you think about it? So when it came to getting the takeover done, those last couple of months, was it a bit tense in terms of hoping to get things sorted, or were you always confident that it was going to get done after the CUOSC meeting was sorted?
After the vote, we didn't see a way where it wouldn't get done. Tom is very on track when it comes to these type of things and business minded. And when we sat down as a family, we went, we're going to get this done one way or another. There were a few pieces that might have not been the ideal situation for us, but we weren't going to.
Concessions were made.
Yeah, but we weren't going to let that hold up the deal. We pressed as much as we could and held the line as firm as we could. But when it came down to it, our goal was to complete the transaction, and we weren't going to let one or two things that were outside factors stop this from happening. So we made the commitment to ourselves that we were going to do everything on our end to get this done. It would not be the fault of the family for leaving anything out or coming up short on anything. And so we made the commitments to those guys, and we knew we were going to fulfill them, and we did, and here we are.
Yeah, it's pleasing that it finally got done. I mean, in terms of the support you got from the fans, obviously looking at that CUOSC meeting and the overwhelming vote in favour, and what spot you got in the build up to the takeover being finalised, and then the day of that game against Charlton, how big was that for the family to see how much the fans were behind it?
I mean, it was incredible just because, we didn't really have doubts, but a lot of topic of conversation before we got to get leaked, I guess, to everyone was, how are they going to respond to us being American? Like, that's always kind of like, some communities are like, yes, it's fine. Like, we support you 110% as long as you support us. So that was kind of in the back of our minds, like, oh, this could go one of two ways. And the fact that it just went completely astronomically in the positive was incredible. And I mean, I've never felt so like appreciated and just overwhelmed with how people have reacted. Because I mean, it was just surreal. Like, you're standing out there and it is just a surreal experience.
It was an unreal day. Being in the fan zone that afternoon, going through, we hit, I think all the different hospitality bars. And then just when that moment when we're down in the tunnel and they just say, go, go, go. And the family starts walking out. Again, as Alice just said, the reception of 10,000 plus, Carlisle faithful, making an absolute racket, and having, it was an amazing moment for us, for the family. One we'll never forget. So that was amazing. And we hope the fans enjoyed it as much as we did, because it was a great day. The weather held off, and we got a point. So it was overall, a fantastic day, a fantastic experience. Glad we had finally made it to that point. That's for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned there about the fact that maybe them being a bit funny about potentially the fact that it's an American family coming in or whatever. But do you think the fact that when that meeting took place with the CUOSC members, you gave so much information, you showed you'd done so much research? How important was it for you to show that we're not just bluffing here, we're not just coming in and taking over and winging it, we've actually done our homework here? How important for you guys was it to make sure that you showed that you have had put that effort in?
Well, I think the main thing that we kind of learned throughout the entire process was just the lack of transparency between the club and its fans. And we wanted to start off on the foot where there is going to be transparency. There is going to be more of a dialogue between the club and the fans. And that's extremely important in a community like Carlisle, because the club is the community, and we want to make sure it's being represented by the community, for the community, and all that kind of thing. And so I think just starting out with the level of transparency that we want you guys to expect from us was extremely important. And I'm glad that it was so well received, because that's not going to change like 5, 10, 20 years down the line. Like, that is how Mr. Tom operates all of his businesses. So just full level transparency, everyone on the same page, everyone involved in discussions to make decisions and all that kind of stuff. So that, that's just...
Yeah, no, it was absolutely massive and important to us to show that the CUOSC who were able to show at that point in time, and everybody, as we can, the level of commitment we have, and the fact that, who we are. We thought that was a really big aspect of it, because, you might read something in a headline or on an article, but you really don't get to know who people are until you talk to them face to face. And there was talk of, do we do that meeting over Zoom? And we said, no, we need to be there. We want to be able to converse with people, talk to people before, talk to people after the meeting, and really kind of, show, who we are as a family, that we're not some, corporate interest coming in to, try to do some business deal with the club. We're a family who's passionate about the sport and passionate about the club and the community. And to do what's best for the club and the community. So that was all really important for us to show there. And as Alice mentioned, it's literally this morning, I had an email that came across to our whole company that shows every branch's numbers, because transparency is something we want everyone to be able to work together, see what each other are doing, and have positive influences on each other.
A common goal, yeah. That's the only way that you're going to strive to a common goal, is if everyone's on the same page. And I think that being transparent with all aspects of the club will get us to the goal that we all are hopefully looking for. So.
I think the transparency one, as fans, we want to know the far end of everything. And fans would never expect to know how much Luke Armstrong's getting paid per week, because we will speculate, we will discuss, but at the end of the day, it's between him and the club, But just the fact that the communication channels are so much more open, and especially in social media these days, everything's everywhere straight away. And I'm not having a go at the last owners, but with their sort of profile, age, etc., the increasingly sort of online world didn't really suit them. I'm not offending them there. I think they would probably agree, but just as fans, to hear that everything is going to be, excuse me, a lot more transparent is music to any football fan's ears. And when it's our club, you're like, brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, no, the undisclosed fee and et cetera for players and things like that. I don't know if that is something that will change, just because I don't know the inner workings of the rules and everything along those lines. You should see my inbox of people sending players that they should be interested in, and who are we going for? And so when we say transparency, obviously there's plenty of things like along those lines that can't be, but as much as we can, we intend to be. So that's something. And from like the social media aspect side, we definitely saw that, and we saw the positive reactions people were getting when it was just a snippet of our family when they did the breaking news, and how much people enjoyed that, and and it was we had a good time doing it. We're not the most active on social media. Nobody's doing that as a regular thing, but we definitely are on there. So it's something where we intend to be open to the fans, be available to, if you have a serious thing, you can message us and we will usually look at it and respond, as long as it's not inappropriate or in any way, trying to slate somebody or something like that. We are open to people reaching out to us and saying, hey, I've noticed this, and we think this could be better. And if it's a good idea, we'll run it up the chain and see what happens. I might get flooded with with requests after this, but it is true that we read a lot online, from the Facebook pages to Twitter to the messaging boards, probably more than some fans might even expect. We're reading it all and taking it in and doing what we can with it.
I will warn you, we'll get a few messages about tarmacking paths, which is a long-running joke among our fan base. So, so in terms of what's happened off the pitch since the takeover, a lot has happened really, really quickly. I think fans are a bit amazed that, we've seen improvements made to some of the lounges and obviously the directors' boardroom as well. Obviously the fan zone's expanded. We've seen all the things going up outside, and obviously there's work already starting on the East stand, or the Andrew Jenkins stand. Was it important for you guys to make sure you had all these plans in place, ready to go bang as soon as the takeover's done, we're in there and we're starting to do that?
Yeah. What we could do, we wanted to get done as soon as possible. Especially, as you mentioned, some of the stuff that we were doing and some of the stuff for the players that probably can't be seen by most people. It hasn't been a ton yet, but there have been minor changes, and, stuff where their families can go, and, some of the training equipment, and even some of like the gym equipment that they needed, that we were able to kind of immediately say, yes, go ahead. Let's get that. The club needs what, these professional athletes need. And the fans have obviously been able to see, the fan zone and, a few other things. The branding has been great. The local businesses that help us out with that did a fantastic job. So all of that was very important to have. I mean, we were getting it ready for the few weeks leading up to what we thought was the date, and the date got pushed back. Yeah. And so things were ready to go. We had, contractors that were just waiting on standby for the moment they had the opportunity to go in there. And we don't see that slowing down in the short term. There's a lot of plans that we have for Brunton Park and the area. And hopefully, with the help of the local businesses and the council, we'll be able to get those done.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff planned off the pitch.
I was going to say, it's good you mentioned the council there, because historically, relations haven't been the best between the football club and the council. But obviously, I know the council had a huge reorganisation within sort of the last year, 18 months. And, hearing you speak about working with the council can only be a good thing for both the club and the general local community in general, because Carlisle United, whether people like it or not, is a bloody big thing in this area, and people like the council, we should be working together, so it's good to hear that.
Yeah, I like to think we're coming in with a clean slate. Obviously, we've also heard about the restructuring and everything, so really it's kind of a clean slate on both sides, it feels like. And we haven't personally met with them. I know Tom and Patty have personally met with them and kind of laid out, kind of some thoughts we have and some ideas, and hopefully
we can work together.
Yeah, things they agree on some of the ones that we've put out there, and we can progress those further down the line, because we think it'd be good for Carlisle United, and we think it would be really good for the for the community of Carlisle as well. What we're proposing.
You mentioned the fact, obviously, before that you're a big Jags fan from the NFL. Now, is there anything? This is one of these sort of cliche questions to ask, but is there anything that you reckon you can take from the sort of fan experience at NFL games that could potentially be added to the experience at Brunton Park?
I mean, we kind of did that for the Charlton game with like the flags and all of like the extra stuff. That's very typical for the NFL. Well, I mean, I don't know about all of the teams, but for the Jags specifically, there tends to be like a freebie every single game that you go to. Obviously, there's not nearly as many of home games as there are for English football. But we kind of got some ideas in like regards to that. And then there are some things like the music and all that kind of like, there's a lot more theatrics I feel like that go on, but we don't want to take away from the history of English football, and like it's very different in that experience, but we do get some ideas.
Yeah, I'd say a lot more theatrics because the game starts and stops every 30 seconds or so. So you have time to do that.
Got a lot of holes to fill.
So that side is definitely different. I would say taking the Charlton game, kind of what we call tailgating, would be something that I could see hopefully being brought over and standing, which, when we go to a Jaguars game, we get there 3.5 hours early and everybody's out, for the Jags, we're in a parking lot, and you just, you bring a big screen TV, you get the early games on if you happen to be in the later afternoon games. We have about 70 season tickets for our company, Magellan. So the people that get those tickets, it's different every week. They're kind of in charge of hosting that tailgate. So they have to get all the food, drinks, speakers, they get parking passes. So they get there bright and early. And then everybody comes to it from the company, whether or not you have a ticket via us or you just, have your own season ticket or something like that. And everyone comes down and, you spend a good 2 to 3 hours before the game hanging out as a group and, getting that atmosphere where people want to come down early, stay. We noticed that at the Charlton game, I think adding the big screen to show the early game, whether that's a Premier League game or an EFL game, has been a big one. I know that game in particular was Manchester City, Liverpool, and there were quite a few people who came up to me and said, hey, honestly, I was going to a friend's place to watch this, and then I heard it was on the fan zone, so I came down here instead. And we're like, that was kind of exactly what we were hoping for. So
we want to definitely build out that experience. I mean, it already has been built out with adding another container and all of that, but I mean, there is so much room to grow that into definitely like a bigger entity of before the game, and also accommodating for like the weather and all that kind of stuff. So that is something in the future that we're definitely looking into.
A couple of years ago, 2:30 in the car park, you'd be lucky if there was a couple of hundred people.
Yeah.
Now, by 1 o'clock, 2 hours before, you've got several hundred, maybe even 1,000, and they're all spending money, which ultimately goes into the club, via food, drink, concessions, etc. And even in just a couple of years, the change has been absolutely incredible. And obviously, you guys are used to that sort of thing from, the tailgates, etc. And I sort of see the fan zone as our version of a British version of a tailgate, but it's only getting more successful, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah, that's exactly our thoughts on the matter. So that's kind of, one thing where we definitely think there is some crossover, because, the fan experience is arguably, other than the footballing result, the most important aspect, because you want someone who leaves to say, I want to come back on Saturday. I want to come back next week. Or their kids say, Mom, Dad, I want to come back. My friends are all going. They're going to be in the fan zone at 1 o'clock. I want to be down there. So that's definitely something that we thought was great. We've seen Carlisle and a few clubs across the EFL that have kind of been integrating the fan zone, and it's definitely something we wanted to expand on, and we think it's been looking fantastic out there all season.
Yeah. Well, my nephew Miles was at the Cheltenham game and he loved the stuff beforehand. Didn't enjoy the game so much himself, but we're sure we'll he's a Man City and Liverpool fan, so I'm doing this deliberately, mentioning it now so I can tell him off and tell him you can't be both, one or the other. So there you go. Or ideally a Carlisle fan long term.
I was going to say it should be neither.
Exactly that. Right, I just want to ask you both sort of an individual question here to ask sort of, what individual skills do you both think you're going to bring in terms of as a director of the club? Because I think, Alice, you particularly mentioned, I think in interviews, HR is a big thing for you, isn't it, in terms of that side of it? And Tom, you've done risk register, that kind of thing, I think, isn't it, your job? So what sort of things would you both bring?
I mean, my day job here at Magellan is human resources. So I've been kind of involved in just kind of getting that back end stuff all organized with the club. But then also just like in the community, what I hope long term when we get more integrated into the community is just being able to be available, be a liaison, do whatever needs to be done in that aspect. I enjoy bringing people together. That's kind of my job in general. I am definitely like in between the employee and the company. So I'm used to kind of being the middle person, and I would love to extend that knowledge and that background into Carlisle as best I can. So hopefully, like long term, that's kind of where I see myself. Definitely not like becoming a full-time like HR person for Carlisle. I'll help however I can. I think a lot of people forget that like we are a different country and we operate very differently in that aspect. And there's not a lot of crossover that I've seen. So I do help in like the broad sense of the term, but definitely more like community oriented, just because I am from such a small town. I really enjoy that aspect of Carlisle, that there are a lot of people there, but it's very much small town vibes, and everyone comes together and supports each other. Definitely reminds me of home more than Jacksonville does. So.
Yeah. And on my side, back here, I handle risk management is kind of the title. So contracts, claims, and insurance, anything that falls under those three kind of hits my desk. There's not a ton of crossover. When people hear contracts, they think, maybe I know something about player contracts. I'm talking, customer contracts and with trucking companies. And the insurance issues I deal with are certainly different than the type of issues that a football club would deal with. But I will say it has definitely strengthened me in terms of my business sense. The ability to have a difficult conversation when it comes to claims and insurance. You're rarely having a fun conversation on any side of that. So I'm definitely, used to that. And then obviously I absolutely love the sport of football. So put the passion together with the drive to learn and the ability to, grasp a concept and not shy away from an issue. Because you can't shy away from issues with trucking claims. It's, the truck got in an accident. You gotta figure it out. So those together, I think will be hopefully a powerful force moving forward and be able to really help step in on the administration side as we move forward and learn more. But it's been a great experience so far with the administration team that we have at Carlisle United. They've really brought us into the fold. We have, weekly, if not daily calls with them, text messages going back and forth to make sure that we're fully up to speed and understand everything that's going on with the club and that there's not anything we're missing out on. And therefore, each day we're learning something new, and it all comes back together to roll up into one ball of information.
It's also been helpful just to not prolong anything that we want to get done with the constant communication, because we don't want the distance to be a reason why things aren't getting accomplished, and it's no excuse. So like we're constantly, as soon as we're in the office, we kind of dive into the Carlisle aspect of our lives, and then once they're out of work, that's kind of when we step into our Magellan role.
In terms of over there in Jacksonville, Florida, how much interest has there been locally in terms of the takeover? Because I've seen a few articles appearing online. Some of the local media over there have taken an interest in the news. Quite a few media picked it up. There was one picture that had Ryan Reynolds and Tom Brady who just came in at Birmingham, and then our family, and we were like, wow, that's three or two people you don't mind being associated with right there. Not sure who came up with that picture, but someone, it was actually a friend of mine that works for the city, sent it and went, what's this? And so there's definitely been some interest there. There's some talks of Jacksonville maybe trying to get something set up with Carlisle from a city to city aspect. There really are deep football roots in Jacksonville. Obviously, there's Shad Khan, who owns the Jaguars, and he's with Fulham. Bill Foley from Bournemouth, he has strong Jacksonville ties as well. And I will say, just in general, it's a really strong area of the country for our young footballers. Growing up, when you played in North Florida, other than South Florida, there was not many areas in the country that could really compete with us. We had a very just strong youth system, and it's nothing compared to the levels that are played at over in Europe, I'll be honest. But it is one of the stronger areas for football in the U.S. I'm surprised we don't have a professional team. We're expected to get one in 2025 in the USL, not the MLS. But we were a market that is ripe for it and does have a really strong footballing background. When you look at our youth development and the guys that go on to play college, generally not professional, but there's quite a few that come up and that you see come from Jacksonville, and people don't necessarily associate Jacksonville as a major sporting town.
But oddly enough, it's very, very competitive when it comes to football.
Is it Sporting Jacks that the USL team's going to be?
I believe that's the name. They actually just came up with the name.
Yeah.
It was Jacks USL, but yeah, I think they went with Sporting Jacks and announced
Yeah,
that months
Tim
ago.
Tebow's involved in it, isn't
Yes, yeah, Tim Tebow's involved in it, and we've had discussions with them, even actually before we, as Alice kind of mentioned earlier, before we even, really broached into European football. We did look locally, and they are an option, and it is progressing with them. We're still talking to them, but they're still in the concept phase. They've been awarded a franchise for going into 2025, so there's no stadium. They don't even have, there's no site. There's no infrastructure to date. It's just a team of guys that are starting to work in the background and kind of build the plan together. They're planning to, I believe, propose to our city council here and try to, work out a deal that'll work really well for our city and the football club. So
should we pencil in, say, 2026, a pre-season Sporting Jacksonville, Carlisle, Fulham, and Bournemouth little tournament?
Oh man, that would be something. That would be something. With a very light pencil and a good eraser. But, it's definitely something to hope for. There's always opportunities like that, but yeah, as of now, and it is odd for us to not have a team here in Jacksonville. The highest we have is basically like a glorified U21s team that used to be in our second division, and they just kind of fell apart, to be honest. So, but the support is here. So I think the Sporting Jacks will do well once they become a franchise. And we continue to have the conversation with them, but our focus is on Carlisle United.
Let's talk about things on the pitch a little bit now then. Obviously, when you came in, the manager, Paul Simpson, someone who is a club legend, a local legend. I mean, how impressed were you with him in particular? How much he sort of got the club and really buys into the community of it?
Extremely. Before we even met him, he was one of the perks of Carlisle United. As I just kind of did my research, and generally a manager is not something you look at and expect to be a long-term situation, or even with transitions you see it sometimes where they can change. And I don't think there was another club that had a manager like Paul Simpson that not only as accomplished as he is, to have the connections he has to the community, and he made it very clear to us that he loves Carlisle United. He has no ambitions to move on at this point that he's told us about. His goal is to make Carlisle United the best club it can be, and that was exactly what we wanted to hear. Selfishly, that was exactly what we hoped for, was a manager of Paul's caliber that wanted to be here and for all the right reasons. And so it was a huge perk. It wasn't anything we expected, but as we learned, who Paul Simpson was, and as we were, leading up to meeting him, made sure the whole family understood, this guy's done it all. He's been across the country, he's been across the world, World Cup winner, and everything along those lines. And for him to, want to be here in Carlisle United, I think is an absolute blessing. And we're very thankful that he's here.
Any other exciting developments coming up in the near future as well, in terms of on the field, off the field stuff?
It's a constant. This January window has been a whirlwind. It was nice to have, obviously, the Luke get settled, about 2 weeks before the window. Yeah. We kind of had agreement in place. Of course, nothing's set until, it's signed on the dotted line, and people saw the FA versus FIFA rules that they were 2 days before the window opened. And we were like, oh man, this could be something. But luckily that all got squared away. So that was good to have in advance. Then, Harrison Neal and Sean Graham, I hope I got that right. To have those two come in next, we were very excited to roll that out early. There's a lot that's working, but it is amazing how quickly things can change on a day-to-day basis. One guy can go from, we think he's coming, to he's gone, but this new guys interested, and things have been moving. We have a short list that Paul and Greg and the team have put together.
They're actively working,
and it actively, players move up it and down it, and it's quite interesting to kind of watch and get the play-by-play. And every now and then, we do have a players call weekly that we do just to make sure we're all on the same page for what we're targeting. But it is definitely an active period, and I can see why the January window is a flurry of activity, because it's been a crazy one being in this situation.
it's quite a different experience, isn't it, from American sports in that sense? Obviously, with your what do you call that? I forgot the name of it now. The
draft.
The draft. That's the one. I couldn't get off the top of my tongue there. Yeah, it's different from the draft, isn't it, in terms of how much transfers go on? And so that's probably been quite a learning curve for you all, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We don't have another window. It's only the one.
Well, there's the trade window, but
it's only one.
Yeah. So yeah, the draft is obviously very, very different. I'm not a huge fan of it. It really, other than American football, it's not a huge thing. Like in basketball, they generally say, the first 5 or 6 picks are important. In hockey, the first couple picks are important. In the NFL, all 270 picks are important, and then they go on from there. And I don't necessarily love that it rewards mediocrity coming in last to get the first pick. I won't complain that we got Trevor Lawrence 3 years ago. So it was the first time we've ever had the first pick in Jacksonville. But it is, I do think it's an odd system. And then the way our transfer window works is basically it's open, and they set just a deadline date, usually about 10 weeks into the season and a 17-week season. And absolutely nothing happens until a day or two before that transfer deadline. You do not see transfers early on in this once the season started until the week of that deadline, and then you'll just see boom, boom, boom. Everybody comes in on one day, and as in a similar way, it is who's pushing for playoffs and maybe who's not. That kind of drives that, but it is a completely different aspect of it. But it's been a whirlwind of a couple weeks here and a couple more to go. So
I feel like you have to move a lot quicker. Well, at least in this transfer window than in American football. So you got to kind of grab the people that you can, because you're going to run out of time.
Yeah, that and there's so many more clubs and players, and
agreed.
In American football there's 31 other professional teams, and that's it. You're not looking outside. You're not looking at free agents, except for maybe one, Joe Flacco this year, who's just an ex-player who came back. But you're really not looking at other leagues. You're not diving too much. The Canadian Football League would be probably the second one, and you maybe see 1 or 2 players at most every couple of years come through it. So there's only 31 other teams you have to look at, whereas here you're looking at 92 professional teams in England, maybe the 5th tier, maybe Scottish, Belgian, Portuguese, any league you want to name. Heck, you can look in the MLS and South America. I think Stockport signed a guy from Minnesota United. I saw it the other day, and I went, oh, look at that. So there's so much more that goes on in the scouting aspect in European football than has to go on the American side. So it's been a lot. As I mentioned, that player list that we have for every position is littered with names that move up and down, and it really can change on a day-to-day basis. And of course, how much of it depends on, the other clubs, and they're waiting on hearing something else, and then boom, chain reaction. And then you get the answer, 2 weeks later. So it's been a whirlwind, but it's been fun. And we definitely hope to have some good news, in January.
Weeks,
You are in for a treat on the 31st of January, the last day of the window. The sheer frenzy. I mean, you'll probably get Sky Sports News put up on the screens at Magellan. Honestly, it's the presenters wear the best suits. The screen flashes yellow every 30 seconds. They go to reporters at every training ground in the country, and it is just crazy. And they'll scream, big deal, and it'll be someone's gone from Mansfield to Gateshead alone, and they're making it out to be Messi going to Miami sort of levels. It's just, you're in for some fun on the 31st.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to it. If the start of this month has been anything to go by, I can only imagine what the deadline day will be like.
I hope we'll have all our deals done before then anyway.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah.
Touch wood.
Fingers crossed. Just a quick one on off the pitch stuff, obviously I mentioned there. We've obviously seen the stuff that's already been done, and obviously looking to do stuff in the East Stand, but there's plenty of other exciting things planned as well, isn't there? And I suppose the summer's going to be a really big opportunity to make even bigger improvements at Brunton Park.
Yeah, definitely. Everything's kind of already been laid out of what we can kind of not do as soon as possible, but well thought out plans into yes, we're going to tackle this first and hopefully get this done before the next season starts. And then obviously just making sure that we're doing all the right things and with the council, getting all of the permitting correct, because what we are planning is build out situations. And so hopefully that all goes smoothly and we can start our next season with some significant improvements to the grounds for you guys.
Yeah, it will not be a quiet summer at Brunton Park.
We got big plans.
Regardless, even if some of the biggest stuff is waiting on permitting or anything like that, there is so much that we have earmarked to be done on all aspects, from the player side to the fan experience, that it will. I can guarantee it will not be a quiet summer at Brunton Park, no matter what. There will be changes, and things that we just not changes in terms of the ground itself or anything along that, but just refurbishing, bringing it into the 21st century, things along that lines. That little things make a big difference on a match day experience. I mean, you're only there for a couple hours, one day a week or one day every other week. But those little differences can make a big difference in your, experience at the match. And that's our goal, is to have the best match day experience we can.
I think it's good as fans as well to hear that is short, mid and long term ideas, because obviously the short term come in quick, easy wins, temporary toilets at the Warwick Road end, get some colour in the fan zone, the big screen. They're short term wins. Everyone's happy. Mid-term, you're probably looking at the summer, maybe next season, and then obviously mid to long, likes of your training ground, etc., that's in the pipeline. And just as fans, to hear that this stuff is happening, again, it goes back to the open communication sort of thing. It's bloody exciting, to be quite honest. It's great.
That's exactly what the reaction we hope for. The goal is to make it improve for the community, Carlisle community asset. So there are some, the training side in particular, it's simply not possible to do that in one summer, is what we've quickly learned. And we knew coming into it. Yeah, it's a multi-year process most likely on that one. But we think we have a process that will work. We've started to float that out there. It's going to have some tweaks needed to be made to it and everything along those lines. But we're glad that that's the reaction you're having as fans, because it's the reaction we're having is excitement as well. And there are plans, as you mentioned, short, medium, and long term to do the best we can for the club.
And we're constantly learning, obviously, because we've never done this before, and just being able to go to the different sites and see how other clubs are doing their thing and tweaking it based on that, because we're all there for the match, but everyone does it a little bit differently, and like some stuff will work, some stuff won't work. And so that's been really helpful, and it's been really nice to see how just kind and generous everyone has been toward us in sharing that information. I was kind of surprised. I mean, we got a whole tour of a training facility for an away game, and it was just incredible. Like, they were so nice. They were so kind, offered an hour of their time to show us around. And we learned a lot from that. We've learned things that could work for us. That probably won't work for us, but it's been exciting. And our list just kind of adds the more we get exposed to these different facilities and what we hope for the future for Brunton Park and also just Carlisle in general. So that's.
I think the fixtures have fell really well for the times when you've been over, because obviously straight after Charlton we had the Reading game, who have the Majeski Stadium, or it's got some daft name now. Yeah. It's like Fleetwood is an old ground, but the main stand is it's quite smart. And again, Wigan's a fairly new ground. So I think you've struck lucky in that you've managed to be over when we've been at teams that have developed and brought things in, and as you say, if an idea is good, pinch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties of League One is luckily there's a lot more matches like that where you do get to see the some top tier stadiums and infrastructure. Yeah. But as Alice mentioned, a lot of the clubs have been very willing to say, come take a look at our facilities, come see what we're doing. We're going to come mind if we come see what you're doing when we come up to Carlisle, and of course. And it's been a good, you compete on the pitch, but outside of it, you're all kind of working towards the same goal, which is just to have the best, academy and fan experience you can. So, it's not like your idea is going to be a secret. People are going to find out about it on game day. So, they've been very open, and it's been great.
I'm going to wrap things up now, guys, because I've used up an hour of your time. Thank you very much. But one more question to finish off. 5 years' time, where do you see Carlisle United?
5 years, I'd like to say, if not in, pushing for the championship.
Yeah.
You know, our mantra when we talk with the family, is fighting for the playoffs right now. Not this season, obviously, but fighting for the playoffs is where Carlisle, we believe, should be in League One.
Top of the table.
And then when you get there and you go make the most of it, you know, we believe this club could definitely be a championship level club. So that would be, in 5 years, I would say that would be
the dream,
an exceptional win.
Yeah.
But we believe it's possible, and we look forward to doing everything we can to get there.
Yeah.
Tom and Alice, thanks very much for your time. I think you're going to find out those 5 years there is no club quite like Carlisle United. Dan will tell you that for certain.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys very much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
No problem.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, once again, huge thank you to both Tom too and Alice for giving up their time to speak to us. Massively appreciated. They're very busy people in terms of all the things to do with Carlisle United and the business back in Jacksonville, Florida as well. So, you know, to get an hour of their time on a busy weekday, can't really grumble at all really with that. It's been brilliant, and you know, we're hoping to grab maybe Jenna and Nick at some point, and definitely we'd like to get Tom and Patty on as well if we can possibly do that. So we're working on that one, and we'll hopefully bring you something back. But you know, we're working on a few more special things as well coming up soon. But other than that, all the regular episodes of the Bugle will be out soon. So yep, keep listening, and thank you once again, and most importantly of all, up the Blues.
You're looking good, and we're with you all the way.